Thank you guys for joining again. We will be reading Idolatry, Journey Out of Egypt by Josh Muglia. We are going to start off in chapter 10, titled Yule. This chapter for many will likely be one of the most difficult ones in this entire book. Out of all the holidays that people love and enjoy, by far, the biggest holiday of the year is Yuletide, or as we commonly know it, Christmas. This past Christmas, I saw posts all over my Facebook page saying remember who Christmas is really about, or put Christ back in Christmas. And the vast majority of us have grown up singing Christmas songs and opening gifts, gathering together with family, caroling, eating Christmas cookies, and going to parades, going to special Christmas services at our churches, and many more traditions. Nearly everyone, being Christian or not, they love Christmas. The stores set up decorations months early. The radio stations begin playing Christmas music months early. Channels like Hallmark begin playing their heartwarming Christmas movies for a whole month long. People love Christmas. But tragically, Christmas is every bit as bad, if not worse, than the other holidays that we have looked at up until now. An interesting thing to look at before we really get into it is a quiet historical footprint that few know about. This is a quote from History.com, which is the website associated with the History Channel. While I would not trust everything that they say, this factoid is verifiable from multiple records and sources. After the Puritans in England overthrew King Charles I in 1647, among their first items of business after chopping off the monarch's head was to ban Christmas. Parliament decreed that December 25th should instead be a day of fasting and humiliation for Englishmen to account for their sins. The Puritans of New England eventually followed the lead of those in Old England, and in 1659, the General Court of Massachusetts Bay Colony made it a criminal offense to publicly celebrate the holiday, and declared that whosoever shall be found observing any such day as Christmas or the like, either by forbearing of labor, feasting, or any other way, was subject to a 5-shilling fine. And the Puritans and the early colonial Americans were so against Christmas that they made it illegal, and anyone caught celebrating it at all was fined 5 shillings. Now, why would the Puritans make a holiday about Christ's birth illegal? Because they knew something that most do not. In my other sections on holidays, I begin with the origin and the meaning of the holiday, and then went into the customs and the practices associated with it. But in this section, I really wanted to do it in reverse. You see, the largest impact comes from realizing what this holiday is all about, and the practices associated with it are secondary. However, due to the nature of the information, without beginning with the conclusion and moving from there, much of the information will be less relevant to you. To begin this section is entitled Yule, which corresponds to the pagan calendar season of Yule, and more specifically, a very special time known as Yuletide. The link between Christmas and Yule is less hidden than you may think. Christmas time is here. Sleigh bells in the air, beauty everywhere, Yuletide by the fireside, and joyful memories there. The song, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Have yourself a merry little Christmas, make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. Mistletoe and holly. Then comes that big night, giving the tree a trim. You'll hear voices by starlight singing a Yuletide hymn. And deck the halls. troll the ancient Yuletide carol. And then later on it says, see the blazing Yule before us. So what is this Yuletide anyways, and what does it have to do with Christmas? Here is a quote from Wikipedia page on Yule. Yule or Yuletide, Yule time, or Yule season is a festival historically observed by the Germanic people. Scholars have connected the origins of the celebration of Yule to the wild hunt, the god Odin, and the pagan Anglo-Saxon Modronheat. I don't know how to say that name. My apologies. Later departing from its pagan roots, Yule underwent Christianized Reformation, resulting in the term Christmastide. Many present-day Christmas customs and traditions, such as a Yule log, Yule goat, Yule boar, Yule singing, and others, stem from pagan Yule traditions. Terms with an etymological equivalent to Yule are still used in Nordic countries and Estonia to describe Christmas and other festivals occurring during the winter holiday season. Today, Yule is celebrated in heathenry and other forms of neo-paganism, as well as in the Levian Satanism. And we are going to break this down much further, but right off the bat, we see that Christmas was a direct Christianization of Yule, and is tied directly to another pagan festival as well. And this quote is taken from the churchofsatan.org. What about the Christmas holiday? The Christians stole this holiday from the pagans. Santa Claus has come to signify indulgence, and he is a combination of Dionysus and of Silenus. From the Roman and Greek myths, the Romans celebrated the orgiastic Saturnalia at this time. The Nazarene has little place in the general public's celebration of the season, which were meant by pagans to be celebration of abundance during a season of cold and emptiness. So for the Yule holiday season, we enjoy the richness of life and the company of the people whom we cherish, as we will often be the only ones who know where the traditions really come from. So Christmas harkens back to Yule, but also Saturnalia. There is actually a very good reason for this, but that will be revealed later. Now, if you look at Yule, Yule was Norse, which, as we know, the Vikings came after the Romans, and they ended up adopting some of their gods. Now, as the quote above said, Yule was all about an event known as the Wild Hunt, which was a time when Odin, astride his 8-legged horse Sleipnir, would fly through the sky with a group of ghostly hunters in tow. Now, if you haven't already figured out, there are some striking similarities between Santa Claus and Odin, and this article is from a website called The Norwegian American, and amusingly is called Don't Take the Odin Out of Yule. Santa Claus owes his very existence to the Old Norse myths. He's changed a lot over the centuries, but his origins in Scandinavia and Northern Europe cannot be denied. Here's a look at how Santa Claus emerged from the lands of the Vikings, exchanging the Norse god Odin's more terrifying traits for those of a plump, chuckling man of eternally good nature. Odin was chief among the Norse pagan deities, and we still remember him in the day of the week named for him, Wednesday, or Woden's Day. He was spiritual, wise, and capricious, and in centuries past, when the midwinter Yule celebration was in full swing, Odin was both a terrifying specter and an anxiously awaited gift bringer, soaring through the skies on his flying 8-legged white horse, Sleipnir. Back in the days of the Vikings, Yule was the time around the winter solstice on December 21st. Gods and ghosts went soaring above the rooftops on the wild ride. The dreaded Oscoria, and one of Odin's many names was Jolnir, the master of Yule, astride Sleipnir. He led the flying wild hunt, accompanied by his sword maiden, Valkyries, and a few other gods and assorted ghosts. The motley gang would fly over the villages and countryside, terrifying anyone who happened to be out and about at night. But Odin would also deliver toys and candy, and the children would fill their boots with straw for Sleipnir and set them by the hearth. Odin would slip down in the chimneys and the fire holes, leaving his gifts behind. And centuries passed, and the world was changing. About the time that paganism was being replaced by Christianity, which happened centuries later in the north than the rest of Europe, honoring Odin became forbidden. Yule was rescheduled to coincide with the Christian celebrations, and Odin was pushed out of the picture. The first chief god was replaced by the goodly Christian Saint Nicholas, a 4th century Greek bishop. He's always depicted wearing a red cloak, and he became known as the patron saint of giving in most parts of Europe, but not in Scandinavia. He had a helper who would report on the children, which were good, and he'd deliver gifts to the good kids. Beware the punishments dealt out to those who were bad. And after the Reformation, Nick and the other saints became forgotten in all Protestant countries of Europe except for Holland. And there he morphed into Sinterklaas, a kind and wise old man with a white beard, white dress, and red cloak. And he'd ride the skies and roofs of the houses on his 8-legged white horse, delivering gifts through the chimney to the well-behaved children on his birthday, December 6th, St. Nicholas Day. But it reminds you of Odin, right? And the 17th century Dutch immigrants brought their tradition of Sinterklaas to America, and then the name changed to Santa Claus. Later on, we have this portion. As for the elves in Santa Claus's North Pole workshop, who work all year long making Christmas toys, it was Odin, who was the lord of Elfheim, home of the elves. And all magical weapons and jewelry of the gods and goddesses were fashioned by highly skilled dwarves who dwelled deep within the earth. Lastly is this portion. Folklore experts cannot deny the legacy of Odin and his transformation into the new versions of Yule gift bringers. Margaret Baker, author of Discovering Christmas Customs and Folklore, comments that the appearance of Santa Claus, or Father Christmas, whose day is the 25th of December, owes much to Odin, the old blue-hooded, cloaked, white-bearded gift-bringer of the north who rode the midwinter sky on his 8-footed steed, Sleipnir, visiting his people with gifts. Sorry for that wall of text, but whoever wrote this article did a wonderful job at presenting the information. And just to verify much of this information, I have 2 more sources that echo this idea, just so you know that this is not a fluke. The next quote is taken once again from history.com regarding the practices of leaving out milk and cookies for Santa. The original roots of this holiday food tradition go back even further, all the way to ancient Norse mythology. Odin, the most important Norse god, was said to have an 8-legged horse, named Sleipnir, which he rode with a raven perched on each shoulder. And during the Yule season, children would leave food out for Sleipnir in the hopes that Odin would stop by on his travels and leave gifts in return. Such a tradition continues today in countries such as Denmark, Belgium, and the Netherlands, where the children still believe that horses carry Santa's sleigh instead of reindeer. And on Christmas Eve, they leave carrots and hay, and sometimes stuffed into shoes, to feed the exhausted animals. In return, they might hope to receive such holiday treats as chocolate coins, cocoa, mandarin oranges, and marzipan. And now a quote from Catholic.com. The stories commonly told today about Santa Claus are based on the legends surrounding the life of a real person. St. Nicholas of Myra was a 4th century Catholic bishop in Turkey. He participated in the First Council of Nicaea, where he famously purported to have slugged the heretic Arius for denying Christ's divinity, and has been considered a patron for children for his generosity to them during his lifetime. For example, he is said to have provided dowries for the girls who would have been sold into slavery if they could not make good marriages. And over the centuries, the legends of St. Nicholas's life have been supplemented with Northern European myths, eventually culminating into the children's story, A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement C. Moore, which imagines St. Nicholas as a right jolly old elf, traveling the world on Christmas Eve in a sleigh pulled by reindeer, distributing gifts to children. Leave it to the Roman Church to suggest that the tales of St. Nicholas were merely supplemented by Northern European myths. In case that you missed it, the Northern Europe was where the Vikings are from. So what's the more likely scenario? That the story of St. Nick was supplemented with pagan elements, or that they took the pagan wild hunt and Odin and slapped a big St. Nicholas sticker on it and called it Christian. Anyways, we have a ton of other things to break down here from the above wall of quotes, but before I do, one more quote. This quote is from a website called Syracuse.com regarding the name of the reindeer. Dunder and Bliksem is a Dutch expression meaning thunder and lightning. While Livingston spoke Dutch, Moore spoke German. The 1844 reprint changes Bliksem to Blitzen, and the latter is the German word for lightning, while the former is Dutch. The change of dunder to donder was likely an error that Moore failed to notice when he reprinted the poem, since he didn't speak Dutch. Eventually, donder became donner, which is the German word for thunder. So yeah, Santa rides through the sky pulled by 8 reindeer, 2 of which are thunder and lightning. Odin rides through the sky on an 8-legged horse, and his son was the god of thunder and lightning. Odin is depicted as a large, semi-elderly man with a large white beard, and Santa is depicted as a large, semi-elderly man with a large white beard. Santa climbs down chimneys to give gifts. Odin climbs down chimneys to give gifts. Santa goes out one night a year on Christmas Eve, which happens to be December 24th. And Odin goes on the wild hunt one night a year during Yule, specifically December 23rd. Odin makes a differentiation between those who are well-behaved and those who are not. Santa has a naughty and nice list, and Odin would punish those who are on his bad side, and Santa punishes those who are on his bad side with either a lump of coal in America or with blackjacks in European Christmas, which we will look at more in a moment. Children would leave shoes stuffed with hay and carrots for Odin's horse, and children leave milk and cookies out for Santa and his reindeer, as well as hanging up their socks on the mantle in place to hope of them being filled. Santa is immortal and known for being old and wise. Odin was the immortal god of wisdom. Santa has a workshop where he lives with his elves and he makes toys as an overseer of the workshop. Odin is lord of Elfheim, where the elves reside, and the dwarfs make weapons. Need I go on? The similarities are endless. So the bad news is that it does not stop there for Santa either. Remember that Santa Claus has a nickname, Old Saint Nick. Well, here are some entries for the name of Old Nick. A Wikipedia page for Old Nick. It is a nickname for the devil, a nickname for Santa. Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of Old Nick, used as a name of the devil. The Free Dictionary by Arlix, Old Nick, a name for the devil or Satan. The Cambridge English Dictionary, Old Nick means the devil. I think it's pretty obvious that something about Old Saint Nick isn't quite right. And hey, remember that trademark laugh of his, ho ho ho? Well, there is a quote taken from Old Weirdlebion, wordpress.com, sorry for butchering that. Once the central figure of holiday festivities, not just midwinter, but May Day and harvest and other season cycle touchpoints, the wild man was banished to a peripheral role over the centuries by Christianity's increasing hold on England. What remained, however, at midwinter was a general idea of the world turned upside down, a carnivalesque atmosphere that made peasant into priest and left the gentry to fear with sailors as they threatened to curse in exchange for a firkins of ale. The chief troublemaker of this atmosphere was to become Robin Goodfellow, known to Shakespeare readers as Puck. The Mad Pranks and Merry Jests of Robin Goodfellow, a book existent from 1628 that probably predates that by quite some time, in a section entitled How Robin Goodfellow Was Wont to Walk in the Night. Robin is described as a chimney sweep whose practical jokes would be followed by his traditional cry of ho ho ho. And as one can guess from the less than modest portrayal in this portrait, Robin hangs onto many of the wild man's jobs as a fertility symbol and a cloven-hoofed central figure of the circular merriment of May Day. But as Siefker points out, that beard and mustache look familiar, slap a red hat over those horns and put the feet on a reindeer before him. And we're starting to see something. And here's another quote from the website called schoolofdragons.com. But the devil connection leads to another theory on the origin of Robin Goodfellow's name. Some think being an old pukey, Puck, or Robin Goodfellow is actually an old god, possibly the Green Man, who we will discuss later. Some say that this god's name was in fact Robin, and he may have been connected to the orange-breasted bird of the same name. With the Christianization of the British Isles, pagan gods and spirits were often relabeled demons to try to keep converts Christian who still believed in them from worshiping them. And if the beliefs were particularly powerful, these old gods may even be said to be the devil himself in disguise. And the fact that he is also called Puck, an alternate name for a nature spirit, god, or ghost across many Northern European countries, it adds credence to this theory. Even today, there are witch covens and neo-pagan groups who refer to their god as Robin, a traditional name for such a god in many parts of the British Isles. So Robin made a demon or a devil by Christian followers seeking to kill pagan idols may in fact have been the name of a powerful god, made into a small and inconsequential trickster, as he became less relevant. Robin is said to haunt and live in the areas of Standing Stones, which is where ancient gods of the British Isles were worshipped. It is believed that this green god may have been the god of vegetation and the forest and of spring and summer seasons. So Old Saint Nick is a perfect mirror for Odin, but beyond that, he also has heavy similarities with a character associated with the devil and a name associated with the devil. On top of that, he also has links to the horned, cloven-hoofed wild man, which the pagans associate with fertility and sex. And the wild man came directly from Greek mythology, from the god Pan, the bisexual half-man, half-goat god, who looks an awful lot like the bisexual, transsexual depiction of Baphomet, who is commonly known to be Satan. Did you know about Krampus? Well, remember how Odin was both terrifying and benevolent based upon whether you were good or not? Santa in modern America just gives you a piece of coal if you're bad, but elsewhere in the world, such as Austria and Germany, if you're bad, Santa sends out Krampus after you. Now, please take a moment to check out this link and watch the video. If you are reading this book in good old book form, please take a moment to search National Geographic, who is Krampus. You really need to see this for yourself. And for those of you who are either unable or unwilling to go to the website to see for yourself, here's an excerpt from the text. When listening to the radio in December, it is unlikely to hear holiday songs singing the praise of Krampus, a half-goat, half-demon, horrific beast who literally beats people into being nice and not naughty. Krampus isn't exactly the stuff of dreams. Bearing horns, dark hair, fangs, a long tongue. The anti-St. Nicholas comes with a chain and bells that he lashes about, along with a bundle of birch sticks meant to swat naughty children, and then he hauls the bad kids down to the underworld. Now, Krampus's name is derived from the German word Krampen, meaning claw, and it is said to be the son of Hel in Norse mythology. The legendary beast also shares characteristics with other scary demonic creatures in Greek mythology, including satyrs and fauns. Now, Krampus was created as a counterpart to kindly St. Nicholas, who rewarded children with sweets. Krampus, in contrast, would swat the wicked children, stuff them in a sack, and take them away to his lair. So, just to recap this little part, the counterpart of St. Nicholas is the horrific, terrifying Krampus, who is depicted as demonic, half-man, half-goat, with long black horns. And Krampus is known as the son of Hel, who rules the underworld. Guys, take the name Santa and just move the N in the middle of the name to the end of the name. Santa and his counterpart Krampus is a perfect match for Odin and Satan himself. Here's one last quote from the website joyofsatan.org to drive it all home. Yule and winter solstice is December 22nd through 23rd. Although the solstice begins on the 21st through 22nd of December, the 23rd is a very special personal day for Father. The sun enters into the sign of the goat, which represents Satan. The night of December 22nd, the eve of December 23rd, is the highest satanic holy night of the year. This was dictated from him personally. It is the day after the longest night of the year, and again, we look forward to new beginnings, as the days will begin to get longer as the year goes on. This is a time for intense celebration and devotion to Lord Satan. Indulgence, decorating the homes, family celebrations, and get-togethers. The night of December 22nd should be spent in dedication to Satan. This is an excellent time to focus on planning for the year. If one wishes to make personal resolutions, this is a good time to do so. The high point of a ritual, personal resolutions can be written on the paper and burned. Father Satan is always there to help us in having the strength to carry through with our intentions. After the rite, intense celebrating should take place. The Yule holidays for Satanists are times of indulgence in taking pleasure in physical and material aspects of life. Actually, Christmas trees and wreaths are pagan in origin. So there is no reason not to celebrate this holiday with our families, with gift giving, baking, and decorating. This is what the true Yule season is about, and not that filthy, worthless Nazarene. Hey. So as bad as it is already, it gets so much worse. Now we have to look at Saturnalia, which is the other basis for Christmas. Saturnalia was a pagan celebration in ancient Rome that revolved around a pagan god, Saturn, or Satan. Before we learn all about what this holiday is, I want to briefly show you how it was celebrated so that you can see how deeply it runs through Christmas. This is 10 steps how to celebrate Saturnalia on wikihow.com. I will list the steps for you here with minor paraphrasing. 1. Wearing green and gold, the colors pertaining to Saturnalia. 2. Decorating your windows and staircases with green garland. 3. Decorating trees on your property with sun and star symbols. 4. Making specially shaped cookies, either like suns or herd animals. 5. Drinking special cold weather drinks like Mulsum, wine and honey. And you greet people with the holiday cry, Lo, Saturnalia. 7. Invite your friends and family over for a dinner feast. 8. Give small gifts to one another. 9. Lighting candles in honor of Saturn. And 10. Let yourself be free, setting aside any social inequalities. Literally everything listed here is commonly found in Christmas celebrations with slight alterations. Here's a list of things commonly done and which in times past I have personally done to celebrate Christmas. Wear red, green, and gold, the Christmas colors. Decorate your windows and staircases with green garland. Decorate your Christmas tree with shining ornaments and a star on top. And make specially shaped cookies like stars or snowmen. Drink special cold weather drinks like hot chocolate or wine, and greet people with a holiday cry of Merry Christmas. Gather with family and friends for a dinner feast. Exchange presents with one another, and light candles because they're just so Christmassy. And lastly, set aside any social inequalities in the spirit of Christmas. So pretty much every tradition, every fun thing that we do for Christmas, every snack, every decoration, every activity, all of it, either directly pertains to Yuletide or Saturnalia. Now, I feel the need to remind you at this time that this festival was not just fun times for people to celebrate. This was worship, and there were many ways that the Romans worshipped their pagan gods. Further, this tied directly back to the worship of the sun. And this is an excerpt from carnival.com/Saturnalia. Saturnalia festival has an astronomical character referring to the completion of the sun's yearly course and the commencement of a new cycle. Saturn, from whom we get the word of the day of the week, Saturday, represented by the sun at its lowest aspect at the winter solstice. The earth is cold, most plants are dead, and it was believed that the sun might also be approaching death. Today, winter solstice is around December 21st, but because of the calendar changes, it was originally December 25th. Saturnalia celebrated the sun overcoming the power of the winter with the hope of spring when life would be renewed. And in Roman times, Bacchus, the god of wine, became the lord of these festivals. So Saturnalia, as did most pagan celebrations, revolved around the sun. It was tied directly to the winter solstice, which, as I explained prior, and this author has mentioned, when the shortest day of the year occurred, is as stated, this was seen as the sun dying off, then being born anew. Sounds like Nimrod and Tammuz, right? This is where it really begins to hit home. For the grand reveal, we will next look at one more tradition that we hold, the centerpiece, the ever-important and needful grand decoration of the holiday, the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree, decorated with the most beautiful of decorations, colored lights, beautiful metallic orbs, and strings of popcorn. The Christmas tree that we all set our presents under and give the central place in the house to. The Christmas tree that we gather round and sing, "O Christmas Tree." First, a passage from Scripture, Jeremiah 10, 2 through 5. Thus says the Lord, do not learn the ways of the Gentiles, and do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the Gentiles are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are futile. For one cuts a tree from the forest, the works of hands of the workmen with the axe. They decorate it with silver and gold, and they fasten it with nails and hammers so that it will not topple. They are upright, like a palm tree, and they cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot go by themselves. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor do any good. Now, many people will try to say that this passage is not talking about Christmas trees, but about making idols. And I absolutely agree with this assertion. This is dead on the money, talking about Christmas trees. And allow me to explain. First of all, it says that one cuts a tree from the forest, the work of hands of the workmen with the axe. So people claim that this is a carving of the idol. But does one carve an intricate statue with an axe? No. It is saying that it did not cut itself down, but it had a workman cut it down with his own hands. This idea is reinforced in verse 5, where it says that they cannot speak and they have to be carried away because they cannot walk on their own. Essentially, it cannot cut itself down. So a workman has to cut it down with an axe. It cannot walk on its own, so it has to be carried. It cannot hold itself up, so it has to be fastened with hammers and nails. Again, one would not choose a woodman's axe to carve an intricate statue. The book is called Idolatry, Journey Out of Egypt by Josh Muglia. You can find it on Amazon for like $17. So then it says that they decorate it with silver and gold. People will claim that this is them overlaying it with gold and silver, as one does with an idol after it's done being carved. But the only problem is that the word being used here isn't overlay. It is yafa, which specifically means to make beautiful or to decorate. The word overlay, used many other times in the Old Testament, is Strong's safa, which literally means to lay out or lay over or overlay. It is a totally different word and meaning. The word used here very much means to decorate it, to make it beautiful, just as one decorates and makes beautiful a Christmas tree. And then they say they fasten it with nails and a hammer so that it will not topple. If one is carving a statue, the first thing that you do is cut the base of the wood blank in question down to size and make sure that it has a flat, steady base so that it can be carved. Nobody carves a statue while it's unstable and toppling all over, so the first thing that you would do is stabilize it with a base. Further, you would be hard-pressed to find a statue or an idol that needs to have nails to hold it up. Again, this is because a statue is designed to hold itself up. Otherwise, it is a terrible statue. If the object in question needs to be held up, it's because it's top-heavy, tall, and awkwardly proportioned. In other words, it is a tree with a narrow base and all the branches still attached, making it top-heavy and unstable. And in the next verse, it solidifies this assertion even further when it is compared to a palm tree standing upright. This is a dead ringer for a Christmas tree. And as we will see in a moment, the palm tree was used in the same manner as the fir tree is used so prominently today. The reason that Christians try to say that this is not a Christmas tree is twofold. First, they want to defend the tradition of men from the scriptures, and knowing they as Christians cannot openly defy the scriptures, they instead just decide to reinterpret it altogether. According to their fancy and claim, this was something else being talked about. The second reason that they will claim that the Christmas trees were not around till much later after those days. But there was no Christmas tree until after Christ's birth after all, right? No, wrong. They had Christmas trees all the way back into ancient Egypt and even further to ancient Babylon. And I will prove it in a minute. The passage in Jeremiah describes perfectly the Christmas tree, and God commands his people not to do the things that the pagans do. Meanwhile, year after year, I see the Christians putting up and decorating their Christmas trees and taking photos in front of it to post it on social media or to slap on Christmas cards. But it's all in good fun, right? God does not seem to think so. Now let me show you why. This is another quote from carnival.com/Saturnalia. The tradition of the Christmas tree symbolically portrayed the death and reincarnation of Osiris and his son Horus. And the Christmas tree, now so commonly among us, was equally common in pagan Rome and pagan Egypt. In Egypt, it was the palm tree. In Rome, it was the fir. And the palm tree denoting the pagan Messiah as Baal Tamar, the fir referring to him as Baal Berith, the mother of Adonis, the sun god, and the great mediatorial divinity, was mystically said to have been changed into a tree. And when in that state, to have brought forth her divine son. So here we see the phallus representing a tree. And if the mother was a tree, the son must have been recognized as man the branch. And this entirely accounts for putting the Yule log into the fire on Christmas Eve, and the appearance of the Christmas tree the next morning as Zoroaster, the seed of the woman. He has to enter into the fire on Mother Night, that he may be born the next day out of it as the branch of God, or the tree that brings divine gifts to men. Another from thejoyofsatan.org, Baal Bereth, is the father of the Yule season and the Yule tree. The Christmas tree, so now common among us, was equally common in pagan Rome and pagan Egypt. In Egypt, that tree was the palm, and in Rome it was the fir. The palm tree denoting the pagan Messiah as Baal Tamar, and the fir referring to him as Baal Berith. The Christmas tree, as has been stated, was generally at Rome a different tree, even the fir. But the same idea as was implied in the palm tree was implied in the Christmas fir, for that covertly symbolized the newborn God as Baal Berith, the Lord of the covenant, and thus shadowed forth the perpetuity of everlasting nature of his power, not that after having befallen his enemies, he had risen triumphant over them all. And in Egypt, they worshipped Nimrod as the palm tree, referring to him as the Messiah, Baal Tamar. Among the most ancient of Baals, he was known as Baal Bereth, Lord of the fir tree, and he evolved into Baal Berith, the Lord of the covenant. And in ancient Rome, where they worshipped the fir tree, they called him Baal Berith. And December 25th was observed in Rome as the day when the victorious God reappeared on the earth, and he was held at the Natalis Invictus Solis, the birthday of the unconquered sun. Now, the Yule log represents the dead stock of Nimrod, known as the sun god, but cut down by his enemies. The Christmas tree represents Nimrod, the slain god reborn. And the ancient practice of kissing under the mistletoe bough, most common to the Druids, was derived from Babylon and was a representation of the Messiah, the man, the branch. The mistletoe was regarded as a divine branch, a branch that came from heaven and grew upon a tree that sprung out of the earth. Nimrod, the god of nature, was symbolized by a great tree, but having been cut down and killed in his prime, he was now symbolized as a branchless tree stump called the Yule log. Then that great serpent came and wrapped itself around Nimrod the stump. Miraculously, a new tree appeared at the side of the stump, which symbolized Nimrod's resurrection and victory over death. Yes, dear reader, there it is, the abominable truth. Christmas does indeed celebrate the birth of a Christ, but it is not God's Christ. Christ merely means chosen or anointed. Christmas is the combination of the word Christ and Mass, referring to the holy gathering of the Roman Catholic Church. Christmas is the celebration of the birth of the Antichrist. Remember near the beginning of this book when I made mention that Satan was the original idolater. Satan wanted to be worshipped as God, and he tried to overthrow God. Satan was soundly defeated and cast out of heaven and down into the earth. Satan was defeated, and he knew that he needed an heir to take his place. Satan will bring forth his chosen one, his Christ, to once again fight against the true Christ at the battle of Armageddon. Santa Claus works all Yule long, getting ready for the big day. He busies himself overseeing his elves, devils, checking his naughty and nice list, separating out humanity according to whom he will bless and to whom he will punish. His work culminates on the night of December 24th. Keep that in mind, y'all. Christmas Eve, when he goes into overtime, delivering his gifts to the entire world in just one night. And the following morning, everyone who Santa deemed good receives their gifts, while the naughty get punished. And during this time, everyone celebrates the birth of Christ, while those who were not good are left out of the festivities. Now, Satan has worked for thousands of years getting ready for the big day. He has busied himself overseeing his demons and drawing people away from God unto himself. He has carefully set the stage to bring forth his mark, in which he will separate humanity into two groups: those who are nice and take his mark and will be rewarded, while those who are naughty those who are naughty, he will reject, and they will be punished by death. He goes into overtime at the end to make sure his mark is brought to everyone. And as soon as he finishes setting the stage, his work will conclude, and he will take the throne of this world in the form of his heir, the Antichrist, whom everyone will worship, except for those who have not accepted him, who will be unable to buy, sell, or trade, and will be hunted down and slaughtered. Christmas in its entirety, from the time of the year to the customs and themes and the characters to the patterns and every single aspect of it, is the celebration of the future event of the establishment of the mark of the beast, the solidification of the kingdom of the beast, and the rise of the Antichrist to sit upon the throne of this world. That, dear reader, is why millions of Christians all around the world celebrate it every single year. They think that they are glorifying the one true God. This is the holiday that I once celebrated and loved. This holiday is one that I have to watch my family and friends and everyone in the world around me celebrate every year. This is the holiday that grieves me more deeply than any other. Many Christians realize that December 25th is not the birthday of Christ, but they shrug it off because that's just a minor detail, right? But the truth is that December 25th is the birthday of the Solus Invictus, the unconquerable sun, the birthday of Tammuz, the first image of the Antichrist. All the decorations, customs, practices are tied directly to worshiping the Antichrist and Satan himself. This holiday has nothing whatsoever to do with the true Messiah at all. Thus, any assertion to put Christ back into Christmas are completely backwards. He was never in this holiday to begin with, and to try to slap Christ as the message over this holiday is to put the image of our King on the form of the Antichrist. And I know that this is a hard pill to swallow, but the holiday only celebrates Satan, the father, in the form of Old Nick and Odin and his son, the Antichrist. Can you imagine how this makes Jesus feel? Can you imagine what he must see as his people get swept up in the spirit of Christmas? He sees all the Christmas parties, the Santa hats, the feasts and presents, and he sees his people being led away to worship Satan and the Antichrist. And many Christians that I have talked to have, as they walked with God, felt that something was not right about Christmas. They have begun to lose any desire of it. It begins to grieve them. And this, dear reader, is why. Have you ever stopped to wonder why the world, who hates Jesus, would allow a celebration all about him to become the single biggest celebration of the year? Why would they throw parades and make thousands of Christmas movies and Christmas songs if it had nothing to do with the Jesus that they hate and cannot stand? And this is why we need to repent and to flee from this holiday as quickly as we can. Me and my family will never celebrate another Christmas from now on until the day I die. I walk through the department stores and see Christmas trees, the image of Baal Berith everywhere. I see people wearing Santa or Satan-themed clothing. I see Christmas Christians getting all excited for this holiday as the season gears up, and proclaiming Christ is the reason for the season. I see special church services in honor of Christmas, and all of it makes me want to vomit. It is not the most wonderful time of year. It is the saddest, as I watch the world and even those who belong to Christ worshiping and honoring Satan and the Antichrist. After all of this, there are still a few things that I need to address. So let's move on from this chapter, dear reader. Thank you for joining me reading this book, Idolatry, Journey Out of Egypt by Josh Muglia. I'm going to end this recording and we'll pick up in chapter 11.